Okay, so we've got another investigation of a reaction between magnesium and hydrochloric acid. So this is one that you should be familiar with now. I've got my magnesium, which is a piece of ribbon in there, in my hydrochloric acid, which is a solution, and I can see bubbles. Okay, so straight away from that picture, I can see bubbles, right? So that is something that I need to be able to identify. The equation for the reaction is magnesium plus hydrochloric acid gives me magnesium chloride and hydrogen. Okay, so again, use the symbols. Magnesium is solid, S for solid. Hydrochloric acid is a solution. It will make magnesium chloride, which is another solution, and hydrogen, which is a gas. Okay, so those symbols are really, really useful. It's information that's hiding that most people will overlook, okay, but it will help you to answer the questions. Right, so first thing says, give 2 observations. If you are observing it, you would be able to see it. Okay, so you couldn't say it got hotter because you can't see that. 2 observations the student would make during the reaction. Okay, now the first one, that's the most straightforward, we've already picked out. Okay, so you could write a gas is produced, so you would get fizzing or you would get bubbles. Okay, so that's one of the observations that I would make. Okay, now the other thing is, if you look not necessarily at what the products are, but if you look at what I've started with, you'll notice that the magnesium is a solid. I have nothing that's solid here. Okay, so because that magnesium ribbon is turning into magnesium chloride, which is a solution, you would see this piece of ribbon slowly disappear. Okay, so the magnesium ribbon would get smaller and disappear. Okay, so those are the 2 things that I would see, and all that information I can take from there. It's not that I've had to learn it. Okay, I don't have to know that information going into the exam. It's here. I just need to identify it within the information that's provided. Okay, right, now the next bit is a 6-mark question. Okay, so it's asking you about planning. Sorry, my paper's all in a ruck. It's asking you about planning this experiment. Okay, so it says that you'll be assessed on your English. Now, that doesn't mean you can't use bullet points, because you can still use bullet points. You need to organise your information clearly, and bullet points will help. Okay, and use specialist terms where appropriate. So we need to be using, where you can, I know we don't use them in everyday life and just general conversations, but you need to use science words if you can. So the student investigated the rate of reaction. So if I'm looking at the rate, it's something to do with speed. You must be bored of me saying this, or time. So I must be using somewhere, oops, I've spelled that wrong. Must be using a stop clock. Okay, so there must be somewhere that you are measuring the time of something. Okay, you're going to change the concentration of acid because it says there. Okay, that's what you're changing. So it's given you that part already. Write a plan, and you should include how would you carry out the investigation and make it a fair test. So that is the things that you would keep the same, and describe the measurements you would take. Okay, now we've got our clue here from our observations that we could see. Okay, there's 2 things there that I could measure, right? So that is what I'm going to be thinking of when I'm writing this plan. Okay, now in terms of keeping the same, I'm only going to change the concentration of the acid. So I need to be using the same amount, the same volume of acid. Okay, so now I can write that out as just the same volume of acid, or I can write a number. Okay, it doesn't matter what my number is, right? I can, as long as I'm saying that I'm keeping it the same. So measure out 25 centimetres cubed of acid. Oops, can't spell. Okay, right, so I've given them a value. I've recognised and I've told them that I know that that's how much I need to use. Okay, you could say 10, you could say 50, you could say 100, right? As long as you write a number to show that you're keeping it the same. Okay, the other thing that I need to keep the same is the size of my piece of magnesium. Okay. Oops, oh, my writing's all over the place. Okay, so I've measured a 2 centimetre strip of magnesium. Right, so again, I've said that it's going to be the same. Add the magnesium to the acid. Now remember, it's to do with speed, so I need to use my stop clock. Now, I've got two options here in terms of what I measure. I could either measure the number of bubbles, okay, or I could measure the time it takes for the magnesium to disappear. So I've got two options there because these are my observations. I could either measure the number of bubbles in a minute or the number of bubbles in half a minute, okay, that's one way that I could do it. Or I could time how long it takes for the magnesium to disappear. Now I'm going to do that one, okay? So time how long for the magnesium to disappear. Okay, so I've done measuring. Okay, so I'm going to tick that off. I've ticked off there. Okay, carry out the investigation. I've done that. Fair testing I've done. Now the last thing I need is what I'm changing. Okay, so what I would then do is I would say repeat using different concentrations of acid. Okay, so that's what they've told me to change. Oh, sorry, it's up here, isn't it? Okay, so I've written what I'm going to change. I've written how I do it. I've included my fair test, and I've also included the measurements that I would make. Okay, so that, even though it's a 6-mark question and I've got all that space, I haven't needed all of it. So don't feel that you have to fill the space. Okay, and please don't be afraid to use bullet points as a step, as an instruction. Okay, I don't just mean like write 2 words. It still needs to be a statement, but it helps you get things in the right logical order. Okay.